step into what we'd like to think about in regards to pondering a thought, placing yourself into a scenario and then thinking about it and how it applies to you. So for a moment, just close your eyes and just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Let's do that a couple of times. And now I'm going to put up on the board something to consider. What I'd like you to do is, while remaining standing, just read the statement, close your eyes for a minute, and try to visualize yourself in that situation. And then when you're ready with a couple of thoughts, let's go ahead and sit down. Let me know you're ready. We'll start a discussion. So I'm going to read it out loud, and you can read along with me. Consider for a moment that armed soldiers in uniform come to your home. Under Climate law, you are told that you and your community must relocate to a place 100 miles away. Your home, everything inside of it, any claims to the land or contents that remain, are no longer going to be yours. What would you think? What could you do? And then further, can you think of events in history where this has actually happened? And then when and where? So just take a few moments and ponder what that would look like. You're at home, people come to your door and say, only what you can carry, you're heading to Canada. Oh, by the way, we're not going to transport you, you must walk. And when you're ready, have a chance to visualize it, then go ahead and have a seat, and we'll move on. For starters, what emotion immediately comes to mind? Anyone?
Fear.
Fear?
Anger.
Anger. Good. Anyone else?
Confusion.
Confusion. Excellent. Sean, do you have one?
Probably anger too.
Anger? Okay. What do you think you could do, given that it's under the claim of law?
Nothing.
What do you suppose is possible for you?
Yeah, that's a hard one. So I have to imagine what age am I?
You're your current age.
Oh, okay. But am I a high school student?
Yes, you're a high school student,
because
sir.
older,
It does
real
change
real
your
me
perspective,
changes that. I may fight. I may, depends on what I have in the house there, Mr. S. But I may go after some of these guys. I have nothing to lose.
I would like to think that I would fight back, but I probably would just deal with it and go along.
If we maybe could do something and align ourselves with them, would we not have to start walking, and would we get food and shelter if we did?
You're going no matter what.
So
No
fight
bartering.
back or walk to Canada.
Kill my family.
What?
What?
Yeah.
Why
they
would
don't
you-
get tortured along the way? Because I know what happens when soldiers show up at your door. It's never good.
It's never good?
It's never good.
I just don't think you kill your support system.
So let's hold on for a second. That's an interesting thought. When soldiers arrive at your home, it's never good. So if in a flood a National Guardsman comes to your home, is that a situation that's never good in that regards when he's there to help?
I guess.
Okay, just something to consider. All right. What events in time in history do you
For the
think?
sake of your family.
Where do you think this is happening in history? Can you find examples in history that this has actually happened that you're aware of?
A few times.
Yes. Megan.
Native American relocations.
Okay, that's one.
Japanese internment.
Perfect. Two.
Jewish diasporas many times.
Diasporas. Okay,
A few times.
absolutely. Angela, do you have any?
They didn't mind.
How about anything in the last
Slaves.
few years, maybe Germany?
Mm.
Would that spark any ideas?
Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Heard about that in my last
I
class.
heard about them.
That's right.
We can go and look at Nazi internment,
Mm.
marching them to internment camps. So that is, we're going to actually fall off of what Megan mentioned immediately was removal of Indians. And continue with our lesson with the Jacksonian presidency, we're talking about the Indian Removal Act of 1830. And we know this guy. Does anybody know where we see him the most in our everyday lives?
Dollar bills.
What dollar bill? That's George Washington.
Dutch.
Is it
50.
the 5?
It's the
Five?
20, yo.
The 20.
There we are.
Yeah, it is
Sean has it right. 5 would be Lincoln. Number 1 would be Mr. Washington.
I don't get many $5
Five.
bills.
Or number 20 would be Andrew Jackson. One thing that's interesting about Andrew Jackson is that everybody associates the Indian removal with him because he signed the law that goes into effect to actually remove them. But land and exchange and treaty was happening long before the 1830s. People from various white settlement groups, government entities would actually coerce Indians into selling their land or even trading their lands for lands west of the Mississippi. And what's interesting about that is that this coercion could be used based on fear and violence, or it could just be they found some lonely schmuck who was a member of the tribe, and then they would actually just take him into a room and force him to sign it. And even though he may have been just the pony holder for the battle encampments, he might be just that simple of a guy, his signature spoke for the entire nation, or for the entire tribe. And that was what was going on. So one thing that as we go through this, I don't want to just point all fingers at one person. This was an actual movement that was happening, and that movement is actually manifest destiny. Does anybody have a definition for manifest destiny from our previous discussions? Rachel?
It's when America wanted to spread us farther because we had the right and the responsibility to do that.
Rights and responsibilities for Western expansion, yes.
Yeah, we thought it was like our destiny to control the whole of North America.
Absolutely, yes. And that was pretty much a kind of guiding principle. It really wasn't given a true name, but that was a lot of the focus. It wasn't given a name until later on. Here's an interesting, I want to point out here, just to kind of talk about before 1830 when that Indian Removal Act was put in place. We see Treaty of Chicago 1821. We see 1805 down here. And this is the state of Indiana. And 1795 of Greenville. And this is where they would actually take and sign these treaties, sell off their land, and give them land or a trade of land somewhere else. Sometimes it'd be in Arkansas, sometimes it'd be on the other side of the Mississippi River. It just depended on where they were at and where actually they agreed to go.
Sell treaties that are just in Indiana, Mr. S? I mean, that's like a lot of treaties for like one state. And Indiana's not like even huge, too.
Right. And that's what was kind of the wild, wild west of this time period, where just entities were coming in, government officials. The whole idea of moving west was a big deal. And so these treaties were put in place. And some of them happened as a result, as we can see the Treaty of Wabash, Tippecanoe happened as a result of the Indian Removal Act of 1830, but these were happening all the time. And they were basically just taking each of these individual tribes and moving them out. Yes, Sean?
What's Tippecanoe?
Tippecanoe is just a location here in the northwest corner of Indiana.
Okay.
All right, so here we're going to watch just a quick video about Andrew Jackson and this process.
To both Thomas Jefferson and Andrew Jackson, seeing to it that each new generation of Americans could own land of their own was the key to creating an egalitarian, self-reliant American people. But that meant each new generation had to move farther west. onto land already occupied by Native Americans.
In Jefferson's vision, the frontier was the place that each generation would replicate the ideal Republican community. The problem, of course, is that the Native people are already living out there. And with one eye, Americans managed to not notice them. But with the other eye, they couldn't fail to notice them, because as soon as you got there, you were in conflict with them. And that creates the fundamental tension that becomes the story of Indian removal.
In Jackson's eyes, there was no doubt about who, Native Americans or white men, would make the best use of the land.
What good man would prefer a country covered with forests and ranged by a few thousand savages to our extensive republic, studded with cities, towns, and prosperous farms, occupied by more than 12 million happy people, and filled with all the blessings of liberty, civilization, and religion?
But Native American tribes, such as the Cherokee, had an entirely different view than white men of how to relate to the land.
The Cherokee way is to share, is to be harmonious. They really were a spiritual people. They had a way of life that would perhaps put most Christians to shame. They exercised that way of life daily. Every morning, the whole village would go to the water for a blessing. And at this going to water ritual, this old man sung this song. Iowa yakani, itehu yakani, iwa aki yakani, iwa sase yakani, eani tase yakani, eani heho yakani. So when I sang that song, it would have been the same sound that you would have heard in the 1700s. So that was all disturbed because of the contact with the whites.
Soon after the creation of the United States, many in the Cherokee tribe decided that their one hope of saving their land was to take Thomas Jefferson's advice and embrace the white man's way of life.
The Cherokees, in fact, took exactly the advice that Jefferson offered. They settled down, they put on European clothing, they developed an alphabet, they learned to read and write, they set up town meetings and a mayor and city council and all those things. And they still had to go, because the problem was they were sitting in Georgia. And Georgia was to be ours, not theirs. They could not coexist.
Despite all the efforts of the Cherokee to fit in, the United States government evicted thousands of families from their homes and forced them onto what became known as the Trail of Tears. One of the Christian missionaries who traveled with the Cherokee wrote,
"The Cherokees are nearly all prisoners. In Georgia, multitudes were not allowed to take anything with them but the clothes they had on. Well-furnished houses were left a prey to plunderers who, like hungry wolves, followed the progress of the captors and rifled the houses and stripped the helpless. I have no language to express the emotions which rend our hearts to witness this season of cruel oppression.
With smallpox and cholera rampant on the Trail of Tears, more than 2,000 Cherokees died.
Okay, we're going to stop right there.
To both Thomas Jefferson.
Okay, so that was the concept again, as you can see, that the Cherokee were highlighted here in the film. They're talking about trying to make peace, and trying to assimilate as best they can. But the whole idea of that conflict of Western expansion by the whites created this tension, and that tension reached all the way up to Washington. Yes.
Well, I think it was Jackson that said, there was a quote in there about, what good man would not want everything that we have and would want what was there, but the Indians were already there. So we were saying they weren't good. We were judging them. I mean, we were in essence determining their worth in that statement.
That's a correct analysis, and that's from my perspective. Is, you know, as much as they tried, they still weren't white. We still saw them as inferior, and so they had to go. Interestingly, in northwestern Georgia, across the northern border here, gold was also discovered during this time, and that had a lot of implications as well. And as we see where they're going, they're heading to what's present-day Oklahoma, and you can see how they've divided up the land. They basically said, this is your land, and they've divided it, and each of those tribes will inhabit that. Now, what do you think the challenges are of tribes who were once spread apart, now being confined to one single area?
They have to get along.
They have to get along. And this is just a little bit more of a detailed map of how that goes. All right, we're going to take a look at a couple of primary sources real quick. And what I'd like you to do is, if Rachel and Sean, if you partner up together, and I'm going to assign you documents 1 and 2, and Megan and Angela, I'm going to assign you documents 3 and 4, which will be on the 3rd and 4th pages. What I'd like you to do is